זכור את אשר עשה לך עמלק, נצטווינו. אנו זוכרים ואנו נלחמים.
It's an entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true. This rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved, it's absolutely not true.
אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים בהתאם.
Very puzzled by the constant concern which the world is showing for the Palestinian people and is actually showing for these horrible, inhuman animals who have done the worst atrocities that this century has seen.
עזה לא תחזור להיות מה שהייתה וחמאס לא יהיה. חסל את הכל.
مع هيك وحوش بشرية رايحين نتعامل كيف لازم. إسرائيل فرضت إغلاق كامل على غزة.
هناك إسرائيليون يعني وصفوا الفلسطينيين في غزة وصفوهم بأنهم حيوانات بل أقل من حيوانات.
أنا لا أسويهم بالحيوانات لأن هذا تحقير للحيوانات.
هذا رأيك دكتور مردخاي؟
نعم هذا رأيي.
תכסחו אותם כמה שיותר, שלא להשאיר מהם זכר. שלא הם, לא אמא שלהם, לא הילדה שלהם, לא התינוקות שלהם. אסור להם לחיות לחיות האלה. יש לך שכן ערבי, אתה לא תחכה שהוא יבוא אליך הביתה. תיכנס אליו הביתה ותירה.
תראה, לצורך לא, אתה חושב שאנחנו יכולים להרוג מאות אלפי פלסטינים ברצועת עזה, והדבר הזה יעבור?
תראה, עכשיו בתקשורת הזרה יוצאת הודעה בשם ישראל שמיליון פלסטינים כבר ירדו מדרום הרצועה דרומה, וכל מי שנשאר שם נחשב כמחבל.
תשמיד את עזה עכשיו, עכשיו. עזה הופכת לדרזדן, כן.
הארץ שלנו. כל הארץ! כולל עזה! כולל הלבנון! כל הארץ המובטחת! שירת התקווה. כל עוד בלבך ונהיגה נפש יהודי נוהיגה ותחת מזרח קדימה עין לציון צופייה.
Okay, we are live yet again on the Hoplite channel. And if you clicked on this video, you are here to see the episode entitled Old Testament and a New War. Yeah. So this episode might be a little longer, just giving you a heads up, but I'm going to try to keep it as coherent as I can. There's so much going on in the news right now as it pertains to Israel and Gaza. It's difficult to keep up, but I think I have put together enough articles and information to try to sort this out. We are right now about a month and 4 days removed from the Hamas attack that occurred on October 7th, and much has transpired. And as you might gather from those opening clips I added, none of it's good. This is not going well for anybody at all. Even though it may appear to be going better for some, I think this is a lose-lose all around, and I'm going to explain why as we talk about this. Okay, but let's recap what's happened in the last 34 days and juxtapose it, compare it against what's been going on in the Russia-Ukraine war. Okay, so we see in the Russia-Ukraine war officially started 24th of 2022, and it is still ongoing. There have been approximately 9,600 Ukrainian civilians killed, which is awful and tragic. And Ukraine is one of the largest countries in Europe. I think by landmass, it might be the largest. Of course, Russia to the east is bigger, but Ukraine is a massive, massive country. And 9,600 civilians dead comes to be about 15 deaths per day since the start of that war, which is not a good figure. 15 civilians dying per day, either from combat injuries or lack of medical care, nutrition, etc. It's regrettable. But since the start, the Russian objective for that war, according to Vladimir Putin, has been, number one, to repatriate the Donbass region in the east and to demilitarize Ukraine so that it can no longer pose a threat to people in the Donbass region or ethnic Russians or Russia herself. That's always been the stated goal of Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin, and they have not deviated from that as far as I can tell. There have been no talks about going after a particular group in Ukraine, just that the Ukrainian military needs to be demilitarized and that the Donbass region that's full of ethnic Russians needs to be repatriated so that it can come under Russian protection. That's been the stated goal since the beginning as far as I can tell. Now, on the other side, closer to the Mediterranean, the Israeli-Gaza conflict started, you could say, the day after the Hamas attack on October 7th, and it is, of course, currently ongoing. As of today, November 12th, we see that the figures report 11,000 Palestinian civilians have been killed, which equates to approximately 324 deaths per day, which is absolutely, positively unacceptable. There is no way that you are waging a war against a terror group, Hamas, that you've been fighting for almost 2 decades now, and you have to unfortunately kill 320 to 325 civilians per day as collateral damage. The Russians are waging a war against a far greater military that has, up until now, has been getting funding and weapon supplies from the United States and from NATO since the get-go. They're managing to kill less than 20 people per day, waging a war against a massive country like Ukraine. And we see that Israel has already killed more than Russia has in almost 2 years. The objective, according to the Netanyahu government, was to utterly defeat and destroy Hamas. And so far, from the reports I've seen, that's not going so great. IDF soldiers are taking casualties, and Hamas fighters are knocking out Israeli armor. The Merkava tanks are coming up against significant resistance. So what does the Israeli government do? Well, we'll just bomb them from the sky. And the problem with bombing people in a urban environment is you cannot, with any pinpoint accuracy, take out your intended target without significant collateral damage, which is what we're seeing. The major incidents that have led to a lot of these casualties, we go back to the Al Ali Arab Hospital. And I covered that incident in my first episode regarding this topic, the Israeli-Gaza war. It was a question of, well, whose rocket was it anyway? The IDF claims it was a misfired rocket from Hamas, and the Palestinian Health Ministry said, no, it was clearly a midnight bombing raid by the IDF. What's happened since then? There's been a bombing at the Jabalia refugee camp. The IDF has not tried to pin this on anybody else. As far as I know, they're accepting responsibility for that bombing. Then you have the Maghazi refugee camp bombing on the 5th of November. Again, I don't believe anyone is pointing fingers as to who was responsible for that. That was the IDF. The Bureji refugee camp bombing, which happened the same day, again, IDF. And then most recently, the Al-Shifa hospital attack on the 9th, which would have been 3 days ago. And again, the IDF, as far as I could tell, is now claiming that there's significant street fighting going on outside of this hospital, which is why it's part of now the war zone. So I read a tweet this morning on X. I don't know what the X version for tweet is now. It's still calling it a tweet. This is from the War Monitor. Hamas suspends hostage negotiations over Israeli forces' handling of Al-Shifa hospital, Palestinian officials tell Reuters. Okay, so I may have mentioned this in the first episode, is that the Netanyahu government and the Israeli government is largely responsible for the creation of Hamas and for their funding. And the reason Hamas was created by Netanyahu's government and Israel in general was to split the Palestinian vote between Hamas and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, and the Palestinian Authority. So by doing so, creating an alternative for the Palestinians, they would split the vote and siphon off enough support from the PLO that a two-state solution would be off the table because no parties could agree on that. Hamas doesn't want a two-state solution, and coincidentally, neither does Netanyahu's government. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And now we're seeing that Hamas is going to suspend hostage negotiations because of the handling of the Al-Shifa hospital incident. Isn't that convenient, right? So now you've got the Hamas organization saying that they're not going to continue with hostage negotiations because of what the IDF has done to Al-Shifa. So that means the fighting is going to continue. And who knows? If there's no reconciliation here, it might just keep going on. And these are all war crimes, just to put it plain and simple. What's going on in Gaza, and now I hear the West Bank has actually had 100 some odd people killed, which the conflict will spread to the West Bank. You can take that to the bank. That's going to happen because this is not about Hamas. This is not about hostages. This is about Netanyahu's government believing that they have the opportunity to seize the area currently occupied by Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank and take it all for themselves. And that's why I put that clip in the opening where you see the Israeli soldiers raising the Star of David, the flag of Israel, on the beach in Gaza. You're not raising a flag on a beach to symbolize your defeat of a terrorist organization. You're raising a flag on a beach to say, this is ours now. We occupy this land and this land belongs to us. So it's a land grab, and it always was. And the United States government is bankrolling it. And Republicans and Democrats seem to both agree that this is a good thing. So we've sent 2 strike carrier groups, and we've sent Ohio-class submarines in addition to support Israel's operation in Gaza. And those Ohio-class submarines are nuclear capable, meaning they can fire intercontinental ballistic missiles that could carry nuclear warheads. So in other words, we've parked enough ordnance off the coast of Israel that World War III could kick off and the United States would be smack dab in the middle of it when it did. And I say this is essentially a series of war crimes because Israel is trying to generate a humanitarian crisis so that other countries will intervene on behalf of Palestinians and take them off the Israelis' hands. And that is essentially what the UN Convention in 1946 envisioned when they wrote down the definition of genocide. I'm going to read that for you right now. This is from the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. This is Article 2 of the UN Convention. In the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. A. Killing members of the group. B. Causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. C. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. D. Imposing measures intended to prevent the births within the group. Or E. Forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Elements of the crime. The Genocide Convention established in Article 1 that the crime of genocide may take place in the context of an armed conflict, international or non-international, but also in the context of a peaceful situation. Okay, remember that part of the definition, right? This is technically Israel infiltrating Gaza to fight Hamas. They're bisecting Gaza to split the north and the south. They're creating the conditions in there where nobody can stay because it's becoming a war zone. And what do you think it's like for pregnant mothers in this war zone? If these hospitals and refugee camps are being bombarded, where can they go to get medical treatment to give birth and look after their newly born infants? It doesn't exist, right? So you create this humanitarian crisis. Well, they can't stay here because, well, the conditions just aren't right. That's part of the definition. Continuing. The latter is less common, but still possible. The same article establishes the obligation of the contracting parties to prevent and to punish the crime of genocide. Okay, so as far as I know, the United States was definitely a party and a signatory to these articles. And instead of abiding by them, we're asking the Israelis for humanitarian pauses. Not a ceasefire, mind you. No, we can't call it that. Humanitarian pauses. But in the meantime, we're parking strike carrier groups off the coast and nuclear armed submarines. That's what we're doing. We're sitting idly by watching it off the shore. And the United States, the media, is doing its best to try to cover this up and make it sound like it's an armed conflict and not 11,000 people being blown to bits to the tune of over 320 per day, many of whom are women and children. Okay, so let's read about this Al-Shifa hospital incident and we'll get some context for that. And this is from Reuters on November 10th, yesterday. Palestinians flee Al-Shifa hospital after deadly strike. Gaza. Ayman al-Masri joined thousands of people seeking safety in southern Gaza on Friday after fleeing the enclave's main hospital in what Palestinian officials said was an Israeli airstrike. Masri had taken refuge at Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City in the north of the enclave with his mother and sister 10 days ago after receiving treatment in another hospital for a leg wound. Their hopes that they had found safety were shattered by an attack which Palestinian officials said killed one person and wounded others who were sheltering at Al-Shifa, one of several hospitals which officials said were hit on Friday. They struck Shifa today. Everyone started to run to the streets and we came here walking, Masri told Reuters, as he and others made their way south, some with belongings, mattresses, luggage, and other carrying white flags. He said he and his family walked 3 kilometers before passing Israeli tanks that had advanced to the city and walked a few more kilometers beyond the tanks before getting a lift. My leg pains me. Today we're going south. Tomorrow they may send us north. This isn't a solution. We want a truce. Israel did not immediately comment, but says it does not target civilians and goes to great lengths to avoid hitting them. It says Hamas militants have hidden command centers and tunnels beneath Shifa, allegations which Hamas denies. Israel has been pounding Gaza from the air, sea, and ground since Hamas gunmen broke through the enclave's border fence October 7th and carried out an attack in which Israel said killed 1,400 people and abducted 240. Palestinian officials say more than 11,000 people have been killed in Gaza since Israel began its military campaign, and Gaza's hospitals are struggling to cope with medical supplies, clean water, and fuel to power generators running out. Chaotic scenes. A woman who fled Al-Shifa on Friday said she'd been receiving treatment for a wound in the maternity department. We were on the 5th floor because we were wounded, so we were staying there, and then we found bombs falling on us. They made us run to the streets. Video shared social media and verified by Reuters showed chaotic scenes in what appeared to be a covered outdoor area near Al-Shifa's outpatient department where displaced people had been sleeping. A girl in a purple t-shirt with blood smeared on her face, neck, and hands wailed in anguish and flapped her arms frantically. A boy lay face up and lifeless on a mattress on the ground, a pool of blood under his head, and an arm and a leg hanging over the side of the mattress. A man lay motionless under a bench, and a woman clad in black sat slumped over a chair next to him. Clothes and other personal belongings, mattresses, and other household items were strewn all around, and there was blood on the floor, people screaming, weeping, and wailing. One man was shown leading away a crying elderly woman. Two men carried away a young man, one holding his legs, the other his hands. Reuters was able to confirm the location from the girl seen in the video wearing a purple t-shirt and dark trousers, who was also seen in other footage at the entrance of the hospital. The appearance of the hospital entrance also masked file imagery, and the source has uploaded several videos from the hospital previously and was known to be there. Okay, they're hitting the hospitals. There's no doubt about this, and they're claiming that, well, Hamas is under the hospitals, so we have to level the place. If this was the United States waging this war, nobody would give them that excuse, right? If we were going after Al Qaeda or ISIS or whatever terrorist group, the international community would not permit the United States to systematically bomb hospitals because the bad guys we want are somewhere down there below. They would say, well, you got to get off your ass and go down there and go get them. That's part of being a soldier. One of the main virtues extolled by soldiers is bravery in the face of injury and death. Bombing people from above or from a distance miles away because the people you're fighting or you claim to be fighting are hiding underneath, that doesn't fly. That's a war crime. And now you are hitting hospitals where people can't get treatment. And as I said here, in the UN Article 2 definition for genocide, you are creating the conditions where these people either stay and die from injuries or for lack of medical care or disease, whatever, or they leave. So you're giving them the option between exile and death. And for those you have killed, the 11,000, they're counted among the war crimes of genocide. That's all there is to it. No one's debating that the 1,400 Israeli civilians killed by Hamas that was also a war crime. I don't know anybody who's making the case that it wasn't. But what I'm saying is that if you can make that case for 1,400, you can easily make the case for 11,000. All right, second article. This is the Times, or just Time Magazine, rather. Warplanes strike Gaza refugee camps, says Palestinian Health Ministry. This is from November 5th, a couple days ago. Israeli warplanes struck 2 refugee camps in the Gaza Strip early Sunday, killing at least 53 people and wounding dozens, Palestinian health officials said. The strikes came as Israel said it would press on with its offensive to crush the territory's Hamas rulers, despite U.S. appeals for a pause to get aid to desperate civilians. Israel has rejected the idea of halting its offenses, even for brief humanitarian pauses proposed by U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken during his current tour of the region. Gaza's health ministry said more than 9,700 Palestinians have been killed in the territory in nearly a month of war, a number that is likely to rise as Israeli troops advance into dense urban neighborhoods. Yeah, it has definitely risen since this article. Airstrikes hit the Maghazi refugee camp in central Gaza overnight, killing at least 40 and wounding 34, the ministry said. An AP reporter at a nearby hospital saw 8 dead children, including a baby, who were brought in after the strike. A surviving child was led down the corridor, her clothes caked in dust, an expression of shock on her face. Arafat Abu Mashaya, who lives in the camp, said the Israeli airstrike flattened several multi-story homes where people were forced out of other parts of Gaza were sheltering. It was a true massacre, he said, while standing on the wreckage. All here are peaceful people. I challenge anyone who says there were resistance fighters here. There was no immediate comment from the Israeli military. The camp, a built-up residential area, is located in the evacuation zone where Israel's military has urged Palestinian civilians to seek refuge as it focuses its military offensive on the north. Another airstrike hit a house near a school at the Bereji refugee camp in central Gaza on Sunday, and staff at Al-Aqsa Hospital told the AP at least 13 people were killed. The camp is home to an estimated 46,000 people and was struck on Thursday as well. Despite appeals and overseas demonstrations, Israel has continued its bombardment across Gaza, saying it is targeting Hamas and accusing it of using civilians as human shields. Critics say Israel's strikes are often disproportionate, considering the large number of civilians killed. Blinken met with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in the occupied West Bank on Sunday, a day after talks with Arab foreign ministers in neighboring Jordan. Abbas, who has had no authority in Gaza since Hamas took over in 2007, said the Palestinian Authority would only assume control of Gaza as part of a comprehensive political solution, establishing an independent state that would also take in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, lands Israel seized in the 1967 war. Okay, so now Blinken's talking to Mahmoud Abbas in the West Bank, and Abbas is saying, listen, Israel has coordinated with Hamas this war. I have no authority, but there needs to be a comprehensive political solution, and we need to have an independent state established that would take in the West Bank and East Jerusalem and lands that Israel has taken since the 1967 war. Well, Israel is claiming, well, this war is against Hamas, right? So we need to literally bisect Gaza in half so we can clear out northern Gaza of all the Hamas bad guys. That's what they said originally, right? That's what this war was all about. So the Palestinian Authority representative Abbas said, well, we need a two-state solution still. And, well, if it's going to be me, those are the terms. Well, what did Netanyahu's government and the Israeli government say in response? We'll jump to a Zero Hedge article that came out this morning at 10 a.m. Zero Hedge. U.S. seeks clarification from Netanyahu after remarks on Gaza's future. Israeli and other regional media are reporting Sunday that the U.S. is seeking clarification regarding controversial assertions of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a press conference a day prior. Netanyahu emphasized that Israel plans to maintain security control over Gaza even after Hamas is totally defeated. This prompted U.S. officials to request a clarification, which has shown the growing divide between Israel and the U.S. over the war. Middle East Eye and others report in the wake of the comments. He also said that the Palestinian Authority cannot ever run the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu pledged after greeting and consoling families of the fallen IDF soldiers, "We will not stop until the mission is completed. There is no substitute for victory. We will eliminate Hamas and save our hostages," Netanyahu added. The IDF has completed the encirclement of Gaza City. They are on the outskirts of Shifa Hospital and have killed a lot of terrorists. But that's when he issued a controversial remark which fully contradict the latest statements from the White House. Hamas has lost control in the north of the Gaza Strip, he continued. They have no safe place to hide. Until the last of the terrorists, all of Hamas are dead. Netanyahu also ruled out the possibility of the Palestinian Authority controlling Gaza, saying there will not be a civil authority there that educates their children to hate Israel, to kill Israelis, or to eliminate Israel. There cannot be an authority there that pays the families of murderers. There cannot be an authority who didn't condemn the massacre. There will have to be something else. But in any case, our security control. I stand by it and don't intend to give up. Okay, so there you have it, right? Even after Israel defeats Hamas, Netanyahu saying, well, we're going to control the security there, and it's not going to be up to the Palestinian Authority. Meaning, well, Hamas are the bad guys, but the Palestinian Authority are the bad guys too. So because they're both bad guys, we're going to bomb the hell out of the Gaza Strip, kill thousands, now tens of thousands of civilians, and then once it's all over, we're going to control it. Meaning they're going to annex Gaza. And that's what it was all about. It wasn't about getting Hamas. It wasn't about saving hostages. This is a land grab. The October 7th attack was the pretext for a land grab, which makes me think more and more about that day and the events that unfolded, that it was orchestrated and that it's being used as the cover story for what will be the displacement of potentially 2.2 million Palestinians. And if you doubt that, go back to the beginning of this episode and watch that first clip of Benjamin Netanyahu quoting this Bible verse. Book 1 of Samuel, chapter 15, verse 3. I'm going to read the whole verse so you can get the context of it. And this is according to the Bible Gateway.com. Samuel, book 1, chapter 15. The Lord rejects Saul as king. Samuel said to Saul, I am the one Lord sent to anoint you king over his people Israel. So listen now to the message from the Lord. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will punish the Amalekites for what they did to Israel when they waylaid them as they came up from Egypt. Now go, attack the Amalekites and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys. So Saul summoned the men and mustered them at Telaim, 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 from Judah. Saul went to the city of Amalek and set an ambush in the ravine. Then he said to the Canaanites, Go away, leave the Amalekites so that I do not destroy you along with them. For you showed kindness to all the Israelites when they came out of Egypt. So the Canaanites moved away from the Amalekites. Then Saul attacked the Amalekites all the way from the Heval to Shur, near the eastern border of Egypt. He took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive, and all his people he totally destroyed with the sword. But Saul and the army spared Agag and the best of the sheep and cattle, the fat calves and lambs, everything that was good. These they were unwilling to destroy completely. But everything that was despised and weak, they totally destroyed. Okay, that's the Bible verse that the leader of the state of Israel quoted in justification of this assault on Gaza. He quoted a story from the Bible that is part of his people's heritage that describes a genocide. Kill the men, the women, the children, the infants, the cattle, the sheep, the camels, and even the donkeys. Kill everything with a beating heart. The Amalekites. Sorry, I can't pronounce that. The Amalekites are the people you see referenced in the opening clip that the Israelis are calling the subhumans. They mean Palestinians. When you hear Amalek, Amalekites or whatever, that's who they're referring to, the Amalekites. I can't say that word because it's so absurd that we have the leader of a modern country invoking a book that's over 2,000 years old to justify this. The Amalekites. Amalekites. Yeah, it's unreal. Can you imagine the President of the United States invoking the New Testament before we invade a country and just start dropping bombs? And then we claim, well, the Amalek people were in there. So that's why we did that. So, I mean, but the book says we're allowed to kill the women, the children, the infants, the donkeys, the camels. We could take the fatted calves because, well, that's good eating. But everything else we can just lay waste to because the Lord God told me so. This is genocidal mania, and the U.S. is supporting it. That's what's going on. And I feel sick just watching this happen. And the bigger picture is the United States has used Israel, despite its Zionistic tendencies for expansionism, as a beachhead in the Middle East. Because so much of the Middle East drives the engine of the first world, which is petroleum, oil. And the United States, because of the failure to win the proxy war against Russia and Ukraine, is now turning its attention to its beachhead in the Mediterranean and hoping that this humanitarian crisis that is being orchestrated by Israel provokes the Muslim world to join in and particular Iran, because Iran controls the Straits of Hormuz. And if Iran decides to shut off the oil from the Middle East getting to the United States and elsewhere, we will see a recession devolve into a depression so fast it'll make our head spin. When the world's oil is essentially cut in half or worse. And even more reason for concern for the United States is that Iran is quickly moving into full-fledged membership for BRICS. And if Iran is given full membership to BRICS, they will most likely request nuclear capability and tech support from Russia and China. And Russia and China will share nuclear weapons program technology with Iran, and Iran will get a nuclear weapons program. And then you have Israel and Iran now within striking distance of each other, both armed with nuclear weapons, which will level the playing field. And Israel will not be able to so wantonly push around people in its borders as they're doing so at this time. And the United States knows that it will not be able to intervene on Israel's behalf once that happens. So that's why they're making this land grab push right now. They're enhancing the size of their beachhead. And these poor civilians that are caught in the middle are the pawns on the chessboard that are being sacrificed on account of it. And this sick Amalek bullcrap being pushed by Netanyahu is just that, sickness. And I hope Israelis understand, and Americans understand this too, that as I said starting this episode, there is no winner for this kind of scenario. This game is a lose-lose game. Even if Israel gets its wishes and displaces 2 million Palestinians, the world will never forgive you for that. They're not forgiving you for any of this right now. What do you think is going to happen the longer Netanyahu is in charge of the Israeli government? What do you think is going to happen when people like him go on TV and say we've achieved our objective and now Gaza is ours? They're going to assume the last 75 years of Israel's history have been nothing but expansion and war. And there's no possible way they could have done what they've done without U.S. money and U.S. weapons. And they're going to hate both of us, more so than they hate us right now. And in my younger days, I took the side of the United States when it came to the war on terror and fighting for freedom. And Israel was our greatest ally, and that they were the only democracy in the region, so we had to back them. I thought that was just what you were supposed to do and supposed to say. And as I've gotten older and learned more about the history, and I'm seeing this going on right now, I realized that I was totally wrong about that perception of the world. And that, there are no innocent parties in this, at least of all right now is the state of Israel. So I hope any Israelis watching, if there are, or Jews in America, that there is no winning this. In fact, even if you win, quote unquote, it could be the biggest loss for you and your people going forward, because you are going to create a whole new generation of freedom fighters, terrorists, whatever you want to call them. I mean, that's basically, though, it's a poor man's military is another man's terrorist. That's what you're going to do, is you're going to create legions of these people who maybe had no bone to pick with Israel beforehand, but now do. And the United States, being an ocean away, will just talk about it on the news as it's a very unfortunate thing. So I hope people think about this. I just don't want the United States involving itself in these conflicts anymore, because wherever we go in the world, when it comes to situations like this, it's like we bring a can of gasoline to the campfire, and people are like, well, okay, like this fire's been burning long enough, let's let it kind of die down. It's basically on its last few coals, and the United States just pours the gas on, and then the gasoline gets everywhere and it spreads, and now you've got a forest fire. And that's what we've done for the past 50 years, for my lifetime. And it has to stop. And I think it's going to stop whether we want it or not. But if you agree or disagree, that's what the comment section's for. I have no doubt YouTube is now shadow banning my channel as best they can. I don't blame them, because I wouldn't want this information getting out either if I supported the things or political ideologies that they support. However, if you got value out of this, please give us a like, subscribe, share it with anybody who you think might get some value out of it as well. And yeah, I'm going to keep covering this as it carries on, because I just don't see this ending anytime soon. But in the meantime, we're coming up on Thanksgiving here in about a week and a half. Just be thankful that this isn't your country that's going through this right now, because it's awful. Anyway, we'll see you back here next time. Till then, take care.